Looking for a high-end gym with a friendly feel? Well, you find that here at Caleb Fitness Solutions.
You're watching What's Your Story, Vancouver?
Our city.
Our story.
Well, I guess it all kind of started for me more when I was living in Burnaby, and I met, 6 of my, or at the time it was like 10 guys, that we all decided to do, create a dance crew together, and do some air band stuff and learn some routines, and start dancing together, like more on the kind of new school hip hop level of things. And yeah, I mean, the cool thing about the crew, which I love about Canada, is each friend of mine was a different race. So we had Filipino, Chinese, Indian, Portuguese. So each person was a different race in the group, and we all had a common thread through culture and food. So we'd all visit each other's homes and practice in each other's homes and stuff. And then just growing up, mom and dad always hosted people, being from a Lebanese background. So I was always around a lot of people and a lot of parties. So I kind of grew up in that environment of music and bringing people together. My birthday parties were always like kind of big parties. So as I grew up, I met up with the Rascals crew, which they weren't Rascals at the time. They were like Ragamuffin Rascals, or they were just a dance crew as well. And then we kind of formed a big crew together, and they had like graffiti writers in their crew and other DJs in their crew. And then I was like, well, I might as well just start throwing some small parties here and there. So I was in Yaletown at the Yaletown Athletic Club, which was a billiards club, and I got one of my homies to just draw up a flyer, and then I hired 2 of my good friends, Flip Out and Chemo, to DJ the event. And then I just went out there and just started kind of handing out flyers and just caught a little bit of steam doing that. So that was kind of like my beginning stages of kind of getting into the promotion worlds, and then started being a backup dancer for Mad Child and Flip Out, who had a group called What the Hell at the time. And then I went to California for B-Boy Summit, and we had a show there, and Shane, Mad Child, was like, I gotta go pick up a good friend of mine from the airport.
So for me, I was sponsoring the Rascals, or Ragamuffin Rascals, because I have a distribution, Time Bomb Trading. We distribute, streetwear across the country, and I was just starting the distro, and throwing parties myself, sponsored those guys as well as DJs, and then Mad Child Shane was living in North Van. I came from North Van. We kind of grew up in the same circles, music or skateboarding scene. And I was down there for a big trade show. So this is an semi-annual trade show that all the streetwear and fashion products are there. And I was going every, twice a year to this show. And this is where you would see, big hip hop acts, the Far Side the first time, or Souls of Mischief. So a lot of Canadians would come down to this event. It started to become this thing where a lot of friends started catching on to this. Oh, let's go check this, because it's a big party down there as well. And then Rob can continue that story.
Yeah, but also before that, I mean, you did a couple of big parties here in Vancouver, like big raves and big events.
Yeah,
before you even went down there, I guess you were.
I was throwing some big parties. When I started the distribution, which was Fresh Jive was one of the first brands. It was a streetwear brand. We also did Con Art and Pervert, like all these first street Stussy. We were the first to bring these to Canada. And I saw how they were promoting in the States, which was, I went to this party down there and saw the logos on the flyer, so I was like, I'm gonna throw a party here, rented a big warehouse. And at the time, it was just a warehouse. And we had 1,500 people show up at this. It was my first party. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like 1,500 people showed up, and I just did it not to throw the party, but to promote the brand. And the flyer ended up on the cover of the Vancouver Sun, talking about this crazy warehouse party. They couldn't reach him in the phone book for a comment. The company's called Fresh Jive, but it wasn't. Like I didn't have a company name. It was just me. It was just me on the flyer. It was just G on the flyer, like the letter G presents with a couple of friends, and basically ended up throwing this party, so I kept throwing these another party, and then 2,000 people would come. Every time we put the logo on these parties, more people would come, right? So in the end, I guess it was by about the third party, somebody called it like a rave, like it wasn't, we didn't even know that at the time, like what a rave was, you know what I mean? Like this is like before ecstasy even came into Vancouver, like I was into hip hop as well, so we would have like a hip hop room or a b-boy room over here or there. But going back to when we first met, so I'm there, and Mad Child or Shane was coming down for the trade show, and wanted to talk, and I didn't know Rob was coming. I didn't know who Rob was at this time, right? So
yeah, we just kind of like met briefly, and didn't have a lot of contact. But I think when you came back to Vancouver, at the time I had taken up a Saturday night at this place called The Warehouse, which was kind of at its tail end. And I was working with Kilo C at the time on a Saturday night, so I had a couple of months to do this party. So I was just kind of doing this club night on my own at the time. And then I guess Garrett caught wind of kind of the things that I was doing, and then he got offered an opportunity Wednesday night to do a party at this place that was going to be called Red Lounge. It used to be called the Chameleon, which I used to go to all the time. They had an amazing Thursday night. It was a gay club, but Thursday night was a big mix, and Clarence, Michael Golf, and then it was just like called Chocolate Milk, and it was just a dope night where just all types of dope music was being played. So they're like, we're going to shut this club down, and we're going to turn it into a different club with a different name. So they approached Garrett to do.
So basically, I was throwing these warehouse parties, and they got a little out of hand. Like, I mean, the biggest one that we did was 8,000 people, and then ecstasy came into the mix like before that, and music started getting more aggressive. Like it started to go more techno, and then, I mean, it went from people just wearing normal clothes to everyone started to dress up in these costumes, started to emulate like what was going on in London or LA. Like it was literally the first raves in Vancouver, and I was renting these warehouses, and they were getting busted, and then you'd have a voicemail on where to go, like just like the secret egg shit, like all that was going down. And it was trying to build the distribution as well. I was stressing out like trying to do these massive parties because they were getting bigger and bigger. Warehouses weren't wanting you to rent as well. Like, oh, I'm renting this for a party. Oh, that's a flag. So my partners were, renting these spaces. Like, hey, we're shooting a movie for a month, and we'd rent the space, and we'd deck these spaces out like insane. Like I'm talking graffiti, skateboard ramps, like all the more unique space, the better. And it got to a point where we did an 8,000 person party. Not about a New Year's Eve. We were doing these massive flyers that were like this big. We probably killed about 1,000 trees per party, and they were all die cut, heavy boxes, like coming in 10 boxes of these massive flyers. It was fun, like the graphics for the flyers was all part of it because it was helping with the clothing. We'd always put the clothing brand on there. But we got this one party and it got busted, call it like 1 or 2 in the morning, got like $8,000 of alcohol seized. Leaving this party at Anasis Island, as I'm driving away and seeing like 8,000 people like trying to hitch a ride, like no buses, no taxis, I was like, this is getting out of hand. And then the ecstasy thing started to hit, and then there was a lot of like undercover cops coming into these things. It was just kind of like sketchy for me because I wasn't really trying to throw a party, I was just trying to promote the brand. And then that's kind of why when I took a first DJ gig was at the Chocolate Milk. Michael Golf gave me a DJ gig there. I started DJing. And then the Greeks ended up taking this venue over and saying, hey, we're gonna reinvent this club. And they had been infamous for Love Affair and Graceland, which are 2 legendary clubs.
They had owned
from
it
back in the days.
Previous, so they owned Chocolate Milk.
Yeah, but they were going to reinvent
it,
right? So they were going to reinvent to a new thing called the Red Lounge, and this guy Alex Montoya hit me up and said, hey, what do you think about just doing a night? You know, you've done successful with all these parties, the brand was there, and I was like, oh, never really thought about a night, but let's give it a try. And it'll be a hip hop night. I was also with the distribution, I was catering to skateboarders and snowboarders, so I was like, let's do a skateboard, snowboard, pure hip hop night, which hadn't really been done in the city before. It was all different types of genres. And at that point I was traveling a lot for work, and I kind of thought, man, I kind of need somebody that if I'm traveling, like who can hold this down, and somebody that can help promo, you know? And at that point, Rob had been throwing these parties, with all due respect, not the best, you know, that they were okay. No, just joking.
Yeah, I didn't have the resources Gene had.
His heart was there, and I liked him, you know, like he was the B-boys coming up, and he was also friends with the Rascals and Madchild and all my other circle of friends that I was linking up. So, I don't know, he looked like an honest guy, and I was like, hey, let's partner up on this. And at first I was like, hey, you know, I've got the night, it's my night, like I'll just cut you in on, you know, 25% and we'll start like that. But from the minute that we worked, and you know, I was conceptualizing the name, which was El Famoso, and the artwork, because that was something that I was into, the branding of the party and the flyers, and then I have to get up every day at 9 to go to work. Like I've had the full-time career ever since doing the parties. So I was like, hey Rob, you know, he could do some of the groundwork at night, like promoting out at night as well, and do some of that stuff. And in the end, we ended up, from the first night, I think we had 500 plus people. And this night went for 8-9 years straight. But from that first night, I was like, oh dude, we're just partners, like 50-50, let's do this together then. You know, Gman and Rizk, let's go. Because, you know, honest partner, it was good, like we just worked together. We knew our sort of roles in the partnership too.
Yeah, it was like pretty much before email, before the internet. We would go to G's house like every Monday.
Smoke
night.
signals and stuff, and we would like do this.
Yeah, we would have a list of phone numbers, so we combined our 2 phone lists together, and then we'd be like, okay, you do from, you know, A to C, and then I'll do from D to this, and then we just kind of went down to this list. So we'd spend like a couple of hours every Monday just inviting people out personally.
Like physically calling people, hey, what are you doing Friday night, or what are you doing Thursday? You know, come on out, we got this show going, and then hang up the phone and then call. So I mean, very tedious. I mean, I can't even imagine that right now. But
it'd be more effective too compared to like Facebook now. You have these groups and parties and stuff. But people don't. Yeah. Sometimes just like ignore it. If you call somebody, then.
Yeah. It was super effective. I mean, it was annoying to some, you know, like they'd probably see our numbers and be like, oh shit, it's them again. But, you know, you did connect with your crowd, and people really became friends.
But it wasn't all about us just promoting to them. It was just kind of catching up real quick too. Just like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? And then it kind of like, you know, appreciate the call.
Hey, what are you doing Wednesday?
Yeah, it's kind of like,
honest, Rob.
Yeah, it's kind of like how people try to get on the guest list now. It's a big show, and then they kind of like, hey, Rob, how are you? You know, the day of the show, it's like, you know what's kind of coming up. So it kind of works both ways, right? We need them, they need us. But yeah, and then for the first couple of parties, it was like, you know, it was a great success. And then for the first month, I think we were even ordering like food and pizza and fruits. And then we would like, you know, walk around the club giving people food and thanking them for coming out. So it was, it was a real personal touch, you know, it was like.
With all due respect to the venue, like they give us a Wednesday, you know, like it's not Friday or Saturday, but every time when, you know, you get these Wednesday nights at these clubs, because the coveted night is the Friday, Saturday, but usually the club wants to keep that cover, but we smashed that out to the point where it was a 7-year night. From the beginning it started to the day it gets torn down, you know, this venue, and people, you know, and it becomes their #1 night, because, you know, you have to go real deep with that night. Like every week you're promoting a night, it is so much work, because it's like you're getting the 500 people there on a Wednesday when people are going to school and going to work, and then right after that you got to promote again for the next Wednesday, and you need to have all these layers of promotions, whether it was a birthday or a release party for this, or a snowboard movie premiere, or this rapper is going to come perform, and it was a constant, you know, that's 52 weeks of the year times 7 on this one night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of work.
And obviously all the DJs were playing vinyl at the time. It wasn't, there's no digital or anything of that nature. So everybody, all the DJs were, top ranked DJs in the city. And,
or starting too. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Chemo, Flip Out, J Swing started this night. Marlon and P Love were bouncers initially, you know what I mean? And like they're massive, like these guys are big in the scene right now and great DJs. So I mean, a lot of people started it this night, so it was a really cool night. It was one of the first hip hop nights in the city. And then from that, it kind of led to another night, like, hey, like let's do another. I mean, at that time, I think we even had 3 or 4 nights a week at one point was our top, which was so unproductive, and I don't recommend that for anybody because
any promoter for that matter.
One night is amazing, and you're trying to tell people to come to one, but come to the next and come to the next and come to the next. And we tried to make each one a little different, but it's very hard to tell your friends to come out 4 nights in a row. So you'd smash out on the one Wednesday, but Thursday might be soft and Friday might be busier, and by the end of it all, you're like, holy shit, I worked 4 times as hard and I kind of am breaking even on this. Like, let's scale this back a bit.
How do you find times for like other?
Bob's on permanent vacation here, so I mean, he's always had the time.
Well, that's currently is what he's talking about. That comment is more about the current lifestyle right now. But no, back then I was working at my mom's restaurant. Me and her had a restaurant called Cedar of Lebanon, Middle Eastern food. And then I would do that during the day. And then after work, I also worked at Aldo's selling shoes. And then at night, I would, G had to wake up early, so I was kind of more the nighttime guy, go out to different parties.
Take care of all the ladies.
Take care of all the
This guy's a Tabbouleh master. Tabbouleh master.
They do call me Tabbouleh King, actually.
Okay, Tabbouleh King now. It's
Marcus
elevated.
Wyatt elevated
Okay.
it, but anyways. So I would, because G couldn't be out late because he has to be up early, I would kind of do more of the night shift stuff back then. So I'd be up late waiting for the club to finish to hand out flyers at the end of the night. Which I saw somebody yesterday actually handing out flyers outside of Damien Marley at the Commodore. I was like, holy smokes, like there's people still doing this. I had a lot of empathy for him because I was like, nobody was taking any flyers, because nobody wants to destroy the planet. Yeah, it's like, it's like, what, paper? Like, what is this? Like, we don't use it anymore. But yeah, that's how we kind of like balanced it out. G had a lot of experience on the, the art and the image and the branding. And
it's a perfect balance of art, culture, clothing, fashion, music.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah, it was a good
the
blend.
back of each other, and I mean, to this day, I'm still doing both. But it's been hard. You know what I mean? It's been probably almost 25 years of us promoting together, being partners together. But having a day career which is bigger than life as well has been very tough. There's many days that it was like, 8, 7 in the morning, and then you're getting home at 4 in the morning. Like many days like that. Like that was straight for so long. You know what I mean? But you do get used to it. You know what I mean? You just manage your time. And I've also been one that I'm not like some crazy party animal. Like I'm not out there doing crazy drugs and drinking and all this sort of stuff. So I mean, I think that if you were in this game for that long, and Rob's the same way, you wouldn't be able to do it. Like a little bit of no sleep, no big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, G's tried to retire from the nightlife scene probably 3 times, but I just
Pull me back in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it kind of like, we kind of ended up doing all these nights, and then I kept saying, man, like this is tough. Like I've already got this going on. And to be honest, after the first big parties, these warehouse parties, to even the first night, I'm like, dude, like this isn't even my thing. It's always been a side thing. 25 years later, it's like still doing it. But 10 years ago, after we're finishing up the biggest club night in Vancouver that Vancouver's ever seen, and it was at the time Gossip, Plush, Rage, Harbor Center Now, easily 2,000-3,000 people every week. And it kind of ended up with us doing all these little underground parties, warehouse parties, fun parties, R&B, grande parties at Sonar. Like I'm skipping so much, but another party, another event. And it came to the point where, we got offered this massive night, and it was maybe 2,000 people every week. We're like, holy shit, like we haven't really accomplished that. We ended up kind of connecting with the radio station, which was the Beat at the time, and everyone was listening to that, and ended up doing that night for 6 or 7 years and packing that night with, you know, at least a couple thousand people every single week. So after that night, I kind of said for the second time, hey man, I'm good. Like after this, what else can we do? We've done all this, we've done all that, we've done the biggest night in the city. I think I'm good, finally. Like, I'm good. Like, what else are we gonna do? And that night started to get a little bit more mainstream, because when you're packing 2,000 people, you have to go a little bit more mainstream. The crowd started to turn to, like, you know, not all the friends that I wanted there, and I was trying to execute all these cool things, but, you know, it just kind of became its own entity. But it was making money, you know, like a couple thousand people rolling into the club.
We're talking 17 years into the game too, so our demographic and our friends have gotten a bit older, you know, kids, married, don't go out as much, so the demographic definitely like switched a little bit.
We had to adapt to
Yeah, the environment, and even like just to maybe back up a little bit, after El Famoso at Red Lounge, we got offered to do a Wednesday night at Grande Sonar, and the night was called Grande, and we did that night for like a good 8 years. That was kind of like a little bit of a transition stage for us, from doing an underground hip hop night to a little bit more top 40 reggae, you know, mainstream night, because then I call it kind of like the Puffy era, when it was like, okay, let's get the girls out to dance, because if the girls come out to dance, then the guys are going to come out and hang out with them.
Well, it actually wasn't top 40 yet, because they weren't playing hip hop on the radio.
Top 40, yeah.
It was R&B, hip hop, and reggae, like straight up. But none of that stuff was being played on the radio yet, which is a big thing, because that didn't come till a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, with this bigger night, which was this big up Saturday nights at the big club, I was kind of like really over it by that time, you know, like money didn't even matter to me. Like, let's just end this while it's kind of hot. We always would do that. The nights never died off. I mean, I don't even think, out of the many nights that we had, we've never really even had nights that just people didn't show up. And I'm not just saying that, it's just like the truth, you know, like every night that we had, every club night, over those times we had to make sure they were always busy. Like, other words, like, I'm not even trying to show up to this night, you know what I mean?
But we always tried to balance our nights from like a little bit of more mainstream to the underground stuff. So we always kind of kept our hands in both, doing like more underground shows. And we collaborated with a lot of different people at the time. Sean Lala, Spectrum, we worked with Live Nation a lot, helping them promote, doing all their street promotion for all the hip hop shows. And then the first time that Jay-Z, I think, came to Vancouver was at the stadium. I don't know if it was called.
It's like a Hard Knock Life tour with DMX, Redman, Method Man, Jay-Z, and somebody else.
Yeah, so Live Nation kind of like would hire us to take care of all the street promotion and make sure all the proper underground culture was kind of like hit up and they know about the show. So,
but then you're doing an after party, and then you're working with them, and hey, if you go to that concert, you can use your ticket stub and get into here. So everything was kind of like intertwined and working, but then mixing in the fashion or the streetwear or the shops and the shop kids coming out. So everything was kind of all working hand in hand to like push the nights, all different types of crowd, you know, just to fill up the clubs.
Well, thanks for watching part 1 with Gman and Rizk. Check out part 2 next week, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.